Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, today we're taking another look at the starter decks, and we're going to look at upgrading this one called Growing Hope. It is a Selesnya +1/+1 counters matters style of deck. So, it's got some alchemy cards that we're going to have to kick to the curb, but it looks like from just a cursory glance, then most everything in here either cares about +1/+1 counters going onto creatures, or increases the amount of +1/+1 counters going onto creatures, with cards like Ozolith, Kami of Whispered Hopes, and then you have other things like Sarah Redeemer, putting +1/+1 counters on small creatures once they come in. You got Storm the Seed Core, Fertilid's Favor, Titania's Command at the top end. So you got a lot of very interesting options here for making creatures big and then smacking your opponent with them. So that's how the deck starts. Let's go see what we can do about it to fix it up. Okay, so after a little bit of work and a little bit of soul searching through the +1/+1 counters, I think we've got a workable deck here. So we'll start at the bottom. We have 4 copies of Enduring Bond Warden. So the reason this is in here is because it has backup. And the backup, what it does is it puts a number of +1/+1 counters onto a creature. It could be itself or another creature, equal to the number on backup. So in this case, it's backup 1. So this creature will either come in as a 1/2 on its own, or it'll buff up another creature. So, and it reads, when this creature dies, put its counters on target creature you control. So when you back up another creature, that creature not only gets the +1 counters, but it also gets the text within the creature itself. So if we were to cast Enduring Bond Warden while we had something like Botanical Brawler on the table, and we back up the Botanical Brawler, not only would the Brawler get counters, but it would also get the text from Enduring Bond Warding. So that's why that's in here. Next up, we have Evolving Adaptive. This gets +1/+1 for each oil counter that is on it. And it comes in with 1 oil counter and gets additional oil counters whenever other creatures that are bigger than it come into play. So this is a creature that grows over time with each other creature that comes in. So next up, we have 2 copies of Angelic Intervention. This is a protection spell. It is 1 and a white. It says target creature or planeswalker you control gains protection from colorless or from the color of your choice until end of turn. If it's a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So 1, it gives +1/+1 counters, which we love for this deck. And it also gives protection. So this will help protect against spot removal. Next up, we have 2 copies of the Dusk Legion Duelist. It is a 2/2 for 2 vigilance. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Dusk Legion Duelist, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So I think this card is going to be pretty strong for this style of deck. Intrepid Adversary. 1 and a white for a 3/1 with lifelink. Whenever Intrepid Adversary enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a white any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many Valor counters on Intrepid Adversary. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on Intrepid Adversary. So this is a Anthem effect that just happens to have lifelink along with it. Next up, we have Invasion of Gobakon. This card is perfect for the style deck, because it not only slows down your opponent by a key card in their hand, but it also gives a +1/+1 counter to every creature that attacked this turn. And you can sacrifice the Light Shield Array. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible. So it is a protection spell, it is a +1/+1 counters pump spell, and it gives you scouting information from your opponent's hand, and you can mess up 1 card from your opponent. So if you play this, look at your opponent's hand, say, I don't want you to curve out correctly next turn, or I don't want you to have that key piece of a removal. Invasion of Gobakon. Go for it. Next up, we have 2 copies of Gaia's Gift. It is kind of like Angelic Intervention, but a little bit different. So where Angelic Intervention gives protection, Gaia's Gift gives a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and then it gains Reach, Trample, Hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. So in some ways, it's a little bit better than Angelic Intervention. But Angelic Intervention, giving protection, gives an ability to give a creature a free attack against a monocolored opponent. So while this it gives like more hardy protections, this one gives an almost unblockable effect to a creature. So two different cards do essentially the same thing against spot removal, but gives just a little bit more oomph one way or the other. So I wanted to have both options in here, especially since we're playing a two-color deck. Sometimes we're going to have access to one color, not the other. So I wanted to split the protection spells 2 and 2. Next up, Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. It is a legendary artifact for 2 mana. If one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 +1/+1 counters are put on instead. So if you put 2 counters on it, make it 3. If you got 4 counters, make it 5. That kind of thing. Then it says, pay 1 and a green, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact or creature you control, activate as a sorcery. And it also has cycling. So, kind of a role player for this deck. Next up, we have the Kirin Beastcaller for 1 and a green. It's a 2/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kirin Beastcaller. When Kirin Beastcaller dies, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Kirin Beastcaller. So basically, when it dies, distribute the counters that were on her onto the rest of your team. So it's pretty good. Then we have Botanical Brawler. This is a 0/0 with trample for a green and a white. It reads, Botanical Brawler enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on another permanent you control, if it's the first time these counters have been put on that permanent this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Botanical Brawler. So this basically grows every time you put counters on other creatures. Now, notice very specific line on here. It says, whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on another permanent you control, if it's the first time +1/+1 counters have been put on that permanent this turn. So it doesn't say any permanent, it says that permanent. So if you've got like 3 creatures on the table plus Botanical Brawler, you put a +1/+1 on one of them, it gets a +1. Then you put a +1/+1 on another creature, Botanical Brawler gets another +1. And you put another +1/+1 on the third creature, Botanical Brawler gets another +1 counter. This guy can get really big if you've got a wide board all accepting +1 counters, which will pair very well with Kirin Beastcaller. So if you get a Kirin Beastcaller that's like a 5/5, it dies, and then those counters get distributed to 3 other creatures. Botanical Brawler is going to get bigger 3 times over. So this guy can get pretty big and pretty scary out of nowhere. Next up, we have the Simeon Semilogram. For 3 mana, you get a 2/1 Artifact Ape. And it says, when Simeon Semilogram enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. And it has Unearth for 2 and 2 green. And Unearth means if this card is in your graveyard, you pay the Unearth cost to return it to the battlefield for a turn. When it comes in, that comes into play, effect triggers. You put those +1/+1 counters on creatures again, and then it has haste, and then it'll die at the end of turn. But the whole point of this is to play it, apply counters. If it dies, you unearth it the next turn, more +1 counters to distribute, and you get another creature to attack with. And it's just more of a good thing with this guy. He's a really good card. I like him a lot. So next up, we have 2 copies of probably the most expensive card in this deck, and it's the Wandering Emperor. So for 4 mana, you get a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. It has Flash, which means you can play it at any time. And it says, as long as the Wandering Emperor entered the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities anytime you could cast an instant. So typically, you're going to be playing this on your opponent's turn to exile an attacking creature. But in this deck, you're typically going to be playing this for the +1, which is put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature against first strike until end of turn. So because it's a +1/+1 counter, you got all the other synergies going on with the rest of this deck. So you're probably going to be playing this offensively instead of defensively in this deck. Next up, we have one copy of Defend the Celestis. 2 and 2 green, instant. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. So this, with 3 other creatures and a Botanical Brawler on the table, you can get a pretty beefy combat, because this is an instant, it's not a sorcery. You just out of nowhere make your team huge. It's pretty good. And then we have 2 copies of a very underplayed card called Cigardian Paladin. For 2, a white and a green, you get a 4/4 Human Knight. As long as you've put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature this turn, Cigardian Paladin has Trample and Lifelink. Now it says a creature, so it can be Cigardian Paladin, or it can be another creature. Doesn't matter. She'll still get the buff. And she has an ability, 1 green, white, target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it gains Trample and Lifelink until end of turn. So she can give her Trample and Lifelink to other creatures. So it's pretty cool. And she's a 4/4 on her own, so nothing to scoff at. For 4 mana, it's pretty good value. And then we have something new here. This is from the newest set, Wilds of Eldraine, and it's a really fun card. It's called Gruff Triplets. For 3 colorless and 3 green mana, you get a 3/3 Trampler. So at face value, that doesn't seem too great. You're paying 6 mana for a 3/3. Why would you do that? Well, here's why you do it. When Gruff Triplets enters the battlefield, if it isn't a token, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. So basically, you cast this from your hand, it comes in with 2 twins. So you have 3 3/3 Tramplers. When Gruff Triplets dies, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power on each creature you control named Gruff Triplets. So if one of your Gruff Triplets dies, and it's a 3/3, you put those counters on the triplets. So Gruff Triplets dies, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power on each creature you control named Gruff Triplets. So if one of these dies, you still have 2 Gruff Triplets left. You put 3 +1/+1 counters on each of them. So now they're both 6/6s. Now if that last one or the second one dies, you put 6 +1/+1 counters on the last remaining Gruff Triplet, making it a 3, 6, a 12/12 Trampler. That's pretty nasty. But bear in mind, this says you put counters equal to its power. So very likely you'll have these Gruff Triplets out, and you'll be adding additional counters to them through other means. So it's possible to get these things to die even bigger than 3/3, just making really big boys, and just making more big boys to swing with. I'm really excited, if you can't tell. This is going to be a fun deck. So there you go. We are running a few more rares and mythics than typical with this. I believe the count is up to like 15 or 17. Let's count it real quick. So let's see here. No. Okay, that's 2 right there. That's 2 more. That's 4. That's 6. Let's see. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, with the Razor-Rich Thicket. Because bear in mind, we are not changing the mana bases at all. We're just sticking with this and making additions. So we are up to 17 rares and wilds. So not nearly as many as I would normally put in a real deck. This is just an upgrade deck. So 17. It's a little bit more on the expensive side, but I think this deck is going to be a lot of fun. So let's go and take it out there, see how it does, and we'll talk about it again when we get done with our games. All right, so all right, so this time we have 3 lands. We've got a Blossoming Sands, a Forest and a Plains, Enduring Bond Warden, Evolving Adaptive, Gruff Triplets, and Invasion of Gobakon. Looks decent, so we'll keep it. All right, our opponent plays a Forest and passes turn. We will open with the Evolving Adaptive. They play Kirin Beastcaller. I will play a Botanical Brawler. We'll attack for 2. 2 gets in. Okay, they play Invasion. Interesting. So they're going to dig up a 1-cost creature. Probably Toxic Boy. Yep, there it is. Called it. Alright, let's go ahead and play Blossoming Sands. And then... let's see here. It's too bad that land came in to play tapped. That sucks. Alright, but we'll play the Enduring Bond Warden. We're going to give a +1/+1 counter there. And we will attack. And take 3. Another Forest. Branch Blight. Branch Blight Stalker. Interesting. What's that do? It is just a toxic. Okay. This looks like this opponent's trying to play a toxic build. Why the Kirin Beastcaller then? Maybe just to bump creatures up. Alright, they come in. No blocks. Alright, my turn. Let's start with Invasion of Gobakon. Take a look at their hand. Okay, so they have Thirsting Roots. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it. Okay, you proliferate. Your target creature gets +4. Okay, we'll take care of the Titanic Growth. Let's see. Let's go ahead and play the... do we want the Bond Warden? Yeah, we'll play the Bond Warden. Do +1 there. Botanical Brawler gets a +1. Both of those are going right there. Boom, boom. Alright, with the Invasion. Comes back. And we end the turn. More +1 counters. Okay, he's gonna proliferate. Okay, gives me a toxic counter and +1 for the Kirin. Pass. He's gonna send both of those that way. Let's see. Titanic Growth. Alright, so we're gonna have to block both of those. Pass. Not going to do anything. Just wanted targets. Alright, my turn. Alright, let's play the Blossoming Sands. Play Evolving Adaptive. And we will play Invasion of Gobakon. Okay. And we will attack again. All attacks go there. Mm-hmm. Alright, he's gonna Titanic Growth it. Resolve. Resolve. We're going to activate this ability to give Hexproof and Indestructible. Invasion comes back. And then we end the turn. More +1 counters. That is a big brawler. Oh my god. Okay. I'm going to assume that he does not have another growth spell. He does not. Perfect. My turn. Ah! He tried to juke me. Wasn't gonna happen. Okay, we got 3 lands. We have Dusk Legion Duelist, Botanical Brawler, Simeon Semilogram, and Gruff Triplets. So let's give it a go. That's a decent hand. Provided our opponent isn't loaded up with a removal. Play Plains, Crawling Chorus. Alright, so some form of toxic build. Okay, play Forest, play the Botanical Brawler. Does he want to attack? Wants to annex. That's boring. Gets one more in. Play Plains, play a Dusk Legion Duelist. So it looks like they are playing the Selesnya Toxic deck. A pretty common deck. Not nearly as common as the Selesnya Enchantments deck. And a Rot Priest. 2 games in a row playing against the Rot Priests. Plays Audacity. Lock there. Alright, our turn. Let's go ahead and play the Blossoming Sands. And we'll play the Solemn Simulacrum. Target there. Draw land. We attack for 4. I love Vigilance. Hopefully they don't play another Annex entry. Because it takes creatures with mana value 3 or less, not power 3 or less. Okay, we've got a Hive. Oh, he's got his lifelink online. Plays Audacity. Okay. Yep, I take some damage. He draws from Audacity and makes a Might. A Mighty Might. Alright, let's see here. So we have 5 mana to play with. Let's go ahead. We're going to play Invasion of Gobekon. Let's see. Bloated Contaminator, Duelist. And let's get rid of the Bloated Contaminator. And then we will attack there. See what they do. Do they want to block? Looks like they don't, so that's going to come over to my side. Just going to start giving me +1 counters. Okay, so we know what their hand is, so it's not going to do me a whole lot of good to hold up mana from Angelic Intervention. So we're going to go ahead and play the Uzalith. So it gets an additional counter in turn. Okay, he drew a card. Resolve. Now it would be just my luck that that one mystery card they just drew is removal. No, it's a Jawbone. Oh no, mystery card is still a mystery. Okay, it's just gonna play 2 Jawbones. How long until they just start coming straight in? Alright. Well, I guess now is probably a good time to play Gruff Triplets. What we'll do is we will attack first. Okay, they take 6. We'll play the boys. End turn. Resolve. Not sure why they're not blocking. I'm not really in a good position to attack anyways. Unless I can just end them. Okay. Okay, he's gonna end it right here, because he can just cast that twice. Yeah, he's gonna cast the spell twice, apply 2 counters to me. Resolve. And then he's gonna swing with everything. Because he's got more creatures than I can block. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's fine. That's game. Good job. Okay, so we got 3 lands, a Raiding Grove, and 2 forests. Dusk Legion Duelist, Emperor, Botanical Brawler, and Kirin Beastcaller. So, looks pretty decent. So we'll keep it. We're not playing anything on turn 1, so the Raiding Grove can turn out first. We'll play a Forest. We'll probably play the Kirin Beastcaller first. Right there, Beastcaller. So I want them to use their removal earlier on things like the Beastcaller, instead of like my Dusk Legion Duelist. So that's a little bit more valuable to me. Hopeless Nightmare, huh? Alright, well, get rid of the Duelist. Got 2 of them. Alright, let's go and play that, and we will play a Dusk Legion Duelist. Attack for 3. We play a Bramble Familiar. It's a 2/2. Alright, let's go ahead and play a Botanical Brawler. That gets a +1/+1 counter. And we will attack like so. Okay, they block. Take 4. We play another Bramble Familiar. Okay, let's go Forest, and we will go Botanical Brawler. Okay, and we will attack. That was a lot of +1 counters. Boom, boom. You have anything? This game might be over before it starts. Playing Sultai. It should have some form of interaction. Four cards, 5 lands. Got anything? It looks like he's digging for answers. Bird Migration. Okay, well, that gives him a little bit of life. And he'll have to block with a Bramble Familiar. He's playing. Is he playing 5 color? Alright, he's gonna scry for 2. Yeah, wasn't enough. I guess that game was just over before it started. You know what? I did have fun. That was a good game. Okay, so we got our games in, and here we are for our post-game wrap. So let's talk about the deck real quick. So first things first is it needs removal. It really needs removal. I would probably trim the numbers a little bit here in the 2 slot just to bring some ossification or Elspeth Smite or something in for removal, because we ran against 3 toxic Rot Priest decks in a row, and we lost one game just because we didn't have any way to deal with one of the Rot Priests. So first order business, add some removal to this deck. It really needs it. So, but aside from that, the Enduring Bond Warden was actually pretty cool. I liked having the ability to modularize my +1/+1 counters and move them around. There were some games where that actually became relevant, and that was very good for us. Evolving Adaptive is a little bit of a non-bow because it gets bigger by dealing with oil counters instead of +1/+1 counters. So that might be a card we might want to look into removing. Aside from that, the Angelic Intervention did great. Dusk Legion Duelist was good. It got up to like an 8/8 at one point in one game. Intrepid Adversary, I was never in a good position to play this card. And mostly just because like the deck doesn't really go wide enough. It's like the deck gets really tall really fast, but at most when your opponent is playing removal, I usually only got up to about maybe 3 or 4 creatures wide in any situation. The Invasion of Gobakon, though, very, very good. I'd probably bump this up to a 3 of. Very solid card for this style of deck. Gaia's Gift, great protection spell. Ozolith is good. Kirin Beastcaller, actually pretty good in this deck. Yeah, I would probably bump this up another, but bring it up to about 3. Botanical Brawler, absolute role player in this deck. You'd love to see it. Simeon Semilogram, really fun card. Really good if you can get the Unearth on it. Wandering Emperor, actually I never even cast this, not one game. Yeah, I drew it a couple games, but didn't end up actually playing it. Same thing with the Cigardian Paladin and the Defend the Celestis. In the games that we actually got to a point to play those spells, we were already ahead so much that it wasn't really necessary. But then again, in other games where we were behind, these would have been great cards to draw. So I'm a little on the fence about whether or not to trim these or not. Gruff Triplets, because of the really heavy casting cost, I probably would drop this. Because like we only cast it one time, and it was pretty ineffective in the one time that we drew it. So, I don't know. Might need a little bit higher of a sample size to fully gauge how good this card is. But like this deck probably wants to keep to a very low curve of 1, 2, 3, and probably kick out some of these higher casting costs in favor of some removal. The protection is fine. The protection is great because you have 2 Angelic Intervention, you have 2 Invasion of Gobakon, and 2 Gaia's Gift. On top of the fact that your creatures are getting really tall really fast, so damage-based removal is not going to hose you nearly as bad as targeted kill cards like Go for the Throat. So your protection is good. You just need some removal in this deck, and I think you should be solid. And just like what we talked about the other day with the Rebel deck, is these lands right here. These need to go as soon as possible if we're going to make a good, cohesive, aggressive deck. These are better for slower mid-range strategies, but for decks that you want to close out as quickly as possible, which you're going to want to be doing if you're a new player, because you want to jam games as quickly as possible to get as much rewards as possible every day. So I would definitely kick these out for either more basics or more dual lands that come into play untapped. So that's how I feel about the deck. It's definitely an archetype worth exploring, but you definitely need some more interaction in this deck. So yeah, that's it. I will put a link to the deck list down below in the description box, so feel free to give it a whirl if you want to. If you want to see more decks like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel, because I do upload new videos at least 3 days a week. So look forward to that. And until next time, take care of yourselves.